Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit. Now, I said I'd bring you some more interviews with people you might be interested in, games developers, people like that. The Runic interview seemed to go down really well, and I'm happy that you guys liked it. Although, what I will say about the Runic interview is, I didn't quite have enough footage to really stretch it out over 30 minutes. Thankfully, the guys were really entertaining and very informative, so that's cool. Now, I do know some other guys that you might be interested in, and they go by the name of CD Projekt, and they came out with a little game that you might be aware of. It's called The Witcher. And the guys from CD Projekt really want to come back on the show and talk to me about The Witcher 2. So I said, hey, that sounds great. And can you send me some footage? And they said, yes. So this is a 25-minute or so interview with CD Projekt regarding The Witcher 2. And in the background, I've got a montage of footage and presentations that have been taken from their press center. They've been sent over directly from CD Projekt. So a lot of cool footage there, as well as some other dev diary stuff that's all subtitled, so you can read that in the background as you like. And of course, there's also an audio download for this available on my website if you prefer just to do that. I'm hoping to bring you more interviews in the future, so without further ado, let's kick it off right here. CD Projekt talking about their upcoming game, The Witcher 2. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit. I'm back here with another interview coming in thick and fast right here, and we're doing well for RPGs lately. We had Runic Games on the show a little while ago, talk about Torchlight 2, and now we have someone from CD Projekt coming along to tell you about the sequel to the critically acclaimed Witcher. His name is Tom Gopp, and he is here in the studio with me. Welcome.
Well, hi everybody. Hi to you. How you doing? It's really nice Friday afternoon in here. How's it?
It's a little bit miserable over here, unfortunately. It tends to be the nasty grey weather of England. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about your role in CD Projekt?
All right. I've been a producer since I actually joined the team around beginning of 2006. So I've been coordinating things all the way along. Right now I'm a senior producer, and I just take care not only about coordination of things connected with the project itself, but also the whole, let's call it, informational strategy. I basically take care that everyone says anything outside, it's actually true.
Excellent. Okay, so let's kick it off and talk a little bit first about the original Witcher. How did the concept for The Witcher actually come about? Because it is based on a series of books, is it not?
It is. I mean, definitely the world is. Stories are around, but yeah, it is. Okay, for a start, I want to assure everyone that it really is a comfortable situation for us, actually. Because Andrzej Sapkowski has spent quite a huge part of his life writing the books. And he has written really, really good stories. But the thing that we got from it is a fantasy world. It's a non-generic fantasy world. I believe that for any computer game designer or producer or anyone, especially RPG developer, it's a really comfortable situation to have a non-generic fantasy world. And that's why we've taken this one from the books. We have written the story that starts after the books, but the inspiration was, well, if you think about RPGs, it's always being someone. We thought about, let's make a non-generic hero. It could be anyone, but if you make it like a Witcher, a guy who kills monsters professionally, well, this is where you start with a really cool character, someone you really want to play with. And that was basically the inspiration.
Now, The Witcher did fairly well for you guys, as I recall.
Oh, thank you.
Now, it's got massive critical acclaim, and what was the ballpark sales for that? Because I hear all sorts of different numbers. How many did you actually sell at the end?
Right now, we have fairly crossed 1.5 million copies worldwide. And it's what some people say, I always like to mention it, a dying genre on a dying platform, right? Because it's a PC only, and it's still 1.5 million copies. So
that's extremely impressive.
We think we did well, and we're really happy for that. Seriously, we always thank our community.
Absolutely. So, obviously, since it was so successful, there was going to be a sequel. We did get the announcement of The Witcher 2, and we'll be hearing all sorts of things about it, so this is a perfect time to get right into it and talk about it. But what I'd like to do first is say to you, well, what parts of the original Witcher are you most looking forward to improving in The Witcher 2?
Depends how you define improving. We definitely had two major types of feedback from the community after releasing the first game, and even after releasing the enhanced version of the game. So one of them where you did this thing right, for example, storytelling, narrative aspect of the game. And some people said, okay, I think, for example, combat was too hardcore for me. Please do something so that if I don't care about combat, I won't have to struggle with it. So we did two things. We improved without revolutionizing things that people appreciated. And we modified or improved in a deeper way things that people complain about, like the combat. Well, for example, the main change in the combat in The Witcher 2 is that all the hardcore features that are still present there are not obligatory right now. So it's like, you know, trying to appeal to everyone who liked and didn't like.
Well, since you mentioned the combat, we can get into that right now. So why don't you tell me a bit about some of the more striking changes to the combat system in The Witcher 2?
Well, the most striking one I already have mentioned. It's if you are the kind of guy who's into the story. You're walking through RPG because you want to find characters, find out plots, unveil them, and so on and so on and so on. You don't really care about combat. You would love to mosh through each combat situation and just go on. Leveling up, okay, it's cool, but it's not what I get in it. It's not what's in there for me. So all the hardcore features of the combat, like, I don't know, advanced tactics, combining magic with sword fighting, combining use of, I don't know, items, traps, and everything like this. It's totally a lot of stuff and a lot of fun for people who are into it, but who is not, it's optional. You can go through, like, swipe quickly through combat with moshing your buttons. So it's really, there is an extra level of combat, which is really non-combat, I should say. Well, that's, you know, that's saying things in a short way, but that's basically what we tried to do.
Fair enough. So, if I were, say, a hardcore Witcher fan, what kind of things can I expect to see from the combat that would appeal to me? Say I've already mastered the old system.
Yeah.
What am I going to get to play with now? What's new for me?
A lot of new toys. Well, for starters, we have ditched the idea, well, or at least most of them, because it's not everywhere possible. We have ditched the idea of what we call passive skills and abilities. For example, a lot of things like in The Witcher 2, most of the skills or abilities were about, I don't know, strength +5 or anything like this. Mm-hmm. And we thought, come on guys, let's try to make it more gameplay oriented, more universal. So right now the new skill is more like you find the possibility to enhance the kind of damage of anything that you put it into. You might put it into your magical sign or sword, and it will deal damage to 2 opponents at the same time instead of 1. So it's like things that really give you fun and change the gameplay, more like just increasing your stats. So that's one of the things that you will probably find changed in the combat. And second ones, since we don't have time-based clicking sequences right now, you can perform any types of combinations of strikes of your sword. You don't have to, I don't know, stick to strong style or stick to the fast style. But you can also combine it with magic and carry out really, really insane combos. I'd say more insane than The Witcher 1.
Has there been a little bit of a shift away from the sort of rhythm-based combat system of the original?
Yeah, I mean, still combos have rhythm, but they are not as bound to, I don't know, looking at your clock as they were in The Witcher 1. It's still, if you want to perform a combo, for example, simple takedown combo is 2 fast, 1 strong strikes. You have to do it in the right order, but whether you do it slightly faster or slower, it's going to work anyway.
Nice, excellent. So you got some flexibility on that.
Yeah, that's what we've tried.
Fantastic stuff. Now, I've heard mention that there may be the use of quick-time event sequences in The Witcher 2. Can you confirm that?
There is.
Excellent. And what exactly made you take the decision to use QTEs in your game?
Okay. What we really were afraid of doing this because after we've done it, most of the interviews touch on that topic, and I'm really trying to make sure that everyone notices that it's not the main feature of the combat right now. Take, for example, one huge epic combat that we were already showing a few times all around the world. It's the huge Tentadrake monster. Don't know if you've seen it. It's one of the presentations that we're doing. There is a way to defeat this monster without even using one single QTA. It's just moshing and just cutting all his tentacles and then defeating him. Let's call it conservative way, like barbarian style. But there is an alternative ending to this fight, which means that if you watch the screen and if you notice the QTA event, you use it, and you can find alternative paths. So it's pretty much always about this, but not always. I mean, there are places where you are using QTAs because we designed it to be QTA. But what's really important to us is that the combat or any kind of situation, because small QTAs are also present in some of the dialogues right now. They are pretty much never obligatory, and they are not like the main feature. When you walk through the game, when you finish The Witcher 2, for example, you won't have the feeling that combat or, I don't know, most of the interactive situations were about QTA. No, QTA is just a small taste that we're putting on top of everything else that already has been there.
Excellent. So do you think that people are going to be taking the idea of, say, conversational-based QTEs and doing a direct comparison to games like Mass Effect 2?
From what I remember, Mass Effect 2 used QTA to introduce events normally not present in conversations. I don't know, interactions between characters and stuff like this. I'm not hiding that some of the things inspire us. That did, and it's really cool. We will have interactions during dialogues in our game. For example, people will join in, join out. Some of the people that are carrying out a really intensive conversation might start a fight, but it won't break the conversation, and so on and so on. Bunch of people speaking with another group of people, and so on and so on. So it means that QTAs are there for the player to keep him immersed, but it's not always about major choices in a game. We don't want that important decisions to be done based on the QTA. It's more like there are small situations where fast reaction could get you something interesting, but it's not always like the main alternative choice throughout the storyline. These are always left for the player to have time to decide.
Okay, now you did bring up choices there, which is a nice little segue into my next topic, which would be the fact that the original Witcher was praised by many people and, to some degree, criticized by some. The fact that most of the choices in the game were very morally ambiguous and that there wasn't necessarily a right answer. Now, I assume we can expect to see that going on into The Witcher 2. Can you give us a little bit of insight into the kind of choices that we're going to be making while we play the game?
Yeah, sure. At first, I think it was one of the strongest USPs of The Witcher 1, the choices, because most of the, I don't know, awards that we got or recognition that we got was for The Witcher being a real RPG. I mean, the RPG where you play a role, where you really can feel like inside the skin of the character. And it's all based on morally, I don't know, mature world and choices that you make being, as you mentioned, ambiguous. So of course we are bringing this back in The Witcher 2. It's one of the things that I mentioned were good, but still we wanted to improve them. So what we did in The Witcher 2 is we tried to give player more factors that actually decide on how the story unveils. In The Witcher 1 you had I think 3 major storylines, parallel storylines through the game. It depends how you whom you chose as your ally. I don't know, the Order, the Elves, or try to be neutral. That was the main choice in The Witcher 1. In the second one of the things that you might want to choose is whom you stick with. The second one is, for example, where you go. So because of that, we have more factors that decide on what choice you make, there are way more endings to the game than there were in the first one. We've got like 16 endings in The Witcher 2. Yeah, so that's basically the change in the choices that we've done. We've tried to make more kinds of choices, I would say.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to go on to something that, this is a recent piece actually, it's from the 20th of last month, and this was reported on Rock Paper Shotgun, which is a well-known PC gaming website that I'm sure many of the viewers have read at some point. Now, this is in regards to a report that they did on The Witcher 2 from Gamescom. And there was a particular section of this that stood out to me, and I'm going to read this out as a direct quote.
Like, literally stood out.
Yes, literally stood out and said, hey, you know, this is a little bit interesting, and it's leveled as a criticism to the presentation that you gave. And what I want to do is I want to read this out and give you an opportunity to respond to it. So I'm going to start with it right here, and it says this. Yet signs of a certain crudity remain, something uncertain and immature lurking underneath the surface confidence and maturity. The demo goes to great lengths to show a gritty, unpleasant world, and then, hey, boobs. Big, I can't even pronounce that word. Big, perfect, brazen breasts gleaming like oiled whale skin amidst the blood and grime covering every other surface in the game. The woman in question is a prisoner, supposedly being tortured. It's supposed to be a harrowing moment, treated with monstrous disdain, and instead it's masturbation fodder. An unashamed invitation to admire a pixel-perfect fantasy figure. And it then goes on to say, the game doesn't seem terribly bothered by this, it just wanted to show us some tits. Because apparently that's how you know a game is mature. So, I would like to hear your take on that, since sexuality and mature content has been a big part of The Witcher thus far. It's in the books, it's in the original Witcher game, and it's going to be a big part of Witcher 2 as well. So, how would you respond to that criticism?
I think it's going to be short, but it's actually good that you asked about it, because there's one important thing that I would like to say. When we got back from Gamescom and when we read, for example, Rock Paper Shotgun review, and they wrote what they did, and internally we had a conversation. Guys, we did the scene because we wanted to show mature world. This woman has been tortured, but it's true that the way you showed it means like some of the players will think, okay, so there's a naked woman, maybe there will be a sex scene. Guys, this was not our intention. We're gonna have to think about it. I don't know, redo some graphics or redirect the scene, because it's not about that. She's being tortured. Let's make it so that players don't want to have sex with her. Players really feel for her. And this is what we're trying to do. And it really, actually, seriously, this review inspired us to rethink this scene and re-implement parts of it.
I've got to say, it's rare that a developer will actually come out and say, hey, you know, we've just taken this criticism from this well-known journal and we're going to make some changes. So I applaud you for actually doing that. Now, I would like to go on to a little bit of just general opinion from yourself regarding the nature of a mature game. I mean, let's have a nice general ballpark question for you. What do you think actually makes a mature game?
Yeah. For some time I used to think that The Witcher 1 was a mature game also for the way it graphically presented things. But then I pretty much understood that the reason why 15-year-old or I don't know 14-year-old would not find The Witcher 1 suitable to play was for its decisions. Because when you're a 14-year-old guy, you don't really make decisions the mature people are used to do it. And the decisions in The Witcher and the way that storyline unfolds is suited for adult people, because it makes them like, okay, I don't want the game to think that I'm either good or bad, and after 3 choices recognize that I'm a good guy and I'm gonna see the good ending of the game. No, I can clearly see that the game wants me to focus and think what I would do right now. I mean, supposedly in a real life, but what would I do in a situation like this? Not taking the whole context of the game. So we're trying to create each situation unique and make people decide on it. So this is what I think describes The Witcher as a mature game. And going back to your question, because you wanted me to answer personally, this is what I think defines a mature game. And of all the things that you could say are mature about The Witcher or The Witcher 2, I think this one is the one that appeals to me the most.
Excellent. So we'll do one last question on the whole sexuality thing, and then what I'm going to do is we're going to kick into some viewer questions that have been sent in over the past few days. So the one last question about it is, what do you think sexuality actually adds to the game in terms of the storytelling? How does it enhance the world you're trying to show?
I assume you have played Heavy Rain, have you?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and do you believe that what you've seen in the Heavy Rain, sexuality and sex scene, really added something to the story?
Honestly, yes, because it was tastefully done and it was realistic at the time.
And what I have seen in there was that it was not about seeing naked women. It was about two people really getting together. It was a story well told from the beginning, not from the moment they put their clothes off. So this is what we're definitely trying to do with The Witcher 2. I mean, we got inspired, yes, we did. And what we're trying to do is to tell the story of whether a romance appears in The Witcher 2. We're trying to, you know, show it as two people getting together, and definitely not showing it as a collectible sex cards. So this is the idea.
So no collectible sex cards?
No, not this time. I'd say we will try more cinematic approach, but definitely it's not only about only changing visual aspect, but trying to appeal to more mature audience and trying to do it more maturely.
Indeed, so we are not going to be expecting the, I wouldn't say censorship per se, but the unrealistic approach of, say, Dragon Age.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, time to go on to some viewer questions, so let's kick it off right here. And this one, if you're willing to answer it, of course, is going to be a bit of a spoiler, so that's a warning to everyone.
All right.
Will any characters from the books that weren't in the first game show up in the second?
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, that's an easy one. If you have seen the presentation from Gamescom, it's already actually a lot of versions recorded around in the internet. So there are characters. One you have already mentioned, the woman that is being tortured, and there is also an emissary from the kingdom of Nilfgaard. Both of these characters were mentioned in the books and were not present in the first game. So that pretty much is the answer to your question, right?
Yes, it is. Fantastic.
And there are more of them, of course, as well.
Great stuff. Looking forward to that one. So here's a quick one for you. In regards to a single playthrough, and obviously the game's not finished yet, so you can't give an exact figure, but at a guess, what exactly are you shooting for in terms of length?
That's a tricky one, not because I don't want to say anything, but really things like that are being determined at the very last stage of development. From what I remember in The Witcher 1, for example, we had like way over 100 hours of gameplay, and we did the cut things out at the very last stage, even after beta. So I can't give a precise number that we will have, but the goal is, and we will make ends to make it this way, is not to make it a shorter game than The Witcher 1.
Fair enough. Now, recently you announced that you would be able to load in saves from The Witcher 1, and that would somehow affect your playthrough of The Witcher 2. Can you go into any more specific details about that?
I wouldn't expect that would be a totally different world that you will see in The Witcher 2 if you load different kinds of saves from The Witcher 1. It still is a game that has a really solid story to say that we are trying to say, because it's what we think defines our game. But definitely we think it's cool to have any recognition that you have played the first game, so that player feels it, and it's a kind of reward for the player. So basically, cutting the long story short, the major storyline choices that you have made in The Witcher 1 will reflect the way that, I don't know, people react to you, what they think about you, sometimes even how they behave towards you.
Okay. Now, Geralt is not afraid to get his hands dirty, not at all, but a viewer asks, how much of the game can be beaten without fighting?
Ah, that's a cool stuff. I mean, I don't think the whole game will be able to, you will be able to finish the whole game without fighting at all, at least with these biggest opponents. But it's an interesting question, because I always forget to mention one cool thing that we have implemented in here. The fist fight was present in the first game, and well, it is fighting, I know, but it's cool about non-lethal fighting, because we have enhanced the idea of fist fight in the second game, and right now you have way more possibilities to deal with opponents or people that you like or that you don't like without killing them. So when you want to, I don't know, loot anyone or defeat anyone any way you want, you might use your fists and not kill them. It might change the story later on, and it's for all of these people that don't really want to kill everybody. And this is one of the things that we have introduced. I know it's not exactly the answer to your question, because it's not a non-fighting way of dealing with things, but it's at least non-lethal. So I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that appeals to my inner Deus Ex fan, I must say. Non-lethal combat is fantastic. Now, for someone who hasn't played The Witcher, do you think playing the second game is going to make them go back and check out the original? Do you think there's enough of a story link between the two games to make people think, well, I've just played The Witcher 2, I really enjoyed it, but I would love to see what happened before?
Let me answer this way. We were really concerned by the time we were releasing The Witcher 1 about whether people that don't know the books, and it's pretty much most of the world, will like the game for its story. Because we have written the story, we're pretty confident about it being good. But on the other hand, a lot of Polish people praised the Witcher game because they love the books. And they say, yeah, game about the Witcher, let me play it. And okay. And we always thought, what about the rest of the world? Will they like it? And well, I think they did. I mean, the world liked The Witcher 1 for its story. So it pretty much proves that the story in The Witcher 1 was a good one. And if people like the story in The Witcher 2, and I can assure you that it's not going to be a worse one, probably even better one. So if they think it's a cool story, probably The Witcher 1 has at least that good story. And well, it would be great if they reach for the first game. I mean, it's not obligatory. If you didn't play the first game, you won't get lost in the second game. It's like a totally different chapter of Witcher's life. But yeah, I think that the story of The Witcher 1 is definitely worth checking out. I hope at least some people will want to do it after playing the second game.
Good stuff. Now, how much replayability do you actually think The Witcher 2 is going to have? Are people going to be interested in going through multiple times?
Yeah, there are places that you won't see. There are important characters that you won't meet. And of course there are endings that you won't see, but there are also really, really different experience types that you won't get while playing the game in a different way, or unveiling the story in a different way, branching it in a different way. You will feel that you have maybe even slightly changed the world in The Witcher 2, but there's also a huge difference in the way you do it, because sometimes it seems that, I don't know, politics have triumphed, and sometimes it's more emotions, or you might want to be a professional monster slayer that doesn't really care about anything else in this world. So I guess, yeah.
Now, these last two questions from the viewers are to you personally, and the first of them is, which book of the Witcher series is your personal favorite?
That's easy for me. I mean, it's the last one. For example, I'm a big fan of movies like, I don't know, Fight Club or Pulp Fiction, where the way the story is being told it's really really intense. Things change so fast, and sometimes they're even put not in order to make sure that you are really that you're really immersed in the story. And the last book is definitely where the story really takes so spectacular high scale and wide scale, and it really jumps very quickly, and I had to read it like twice and be really focused to get everything out of this. And I really love the last part of the books.
And one final question. What is your personal favorite improvement in The Witcher 2 over the original?
Seriously, let me think. Well, personally, I think it's graphics. I mean, the story is great, definitely not worse than the first one. We have changed the combat and so on, but probably it's really, really an achievement that we will have the best looking RPG game ever. This is really what I can easily say. I'm not afraid of saying this, and I can compare The Witcher 2 to any upcoming RPG of 2011, and I think this is really going to be an achievement, actually.
Excellent stuff. The gauntlet has been laid down, ladies and gentlemen, by CD Projekt right here on the show. Tom, thanks for coming along, and just as a guess, when can we expect to see Witcher 2 on the shelves?
Well, we are finishing the game around end of March 2011, so well, we don't have a precise release date yet, but it's going to be definitely really soon after that.
Okay, folks, keep an eye on it. March 2011, that is The Witcher 2. Tom, thank you ever so much for coming on the show today. And guys, thanks for watching. I will see you next time.
All right, thanks, bye.